David Copperfield by Charles Dickens is one of literature's greatest stories. It portrays a life full of twists and turns. We're talking hope, hardship, and some seriously unforgettable characters who shaped one young boy's entire world. Dickens himself describes the novel as his favorite child. And you can really feel that when you read it. The story is personal. It came right from his heart. And that's probably why it stuck around for so long. Where does a story like this start? Well, David Copperfield's birth is, let's just say, anything but ordinary. We've got strange prophecies, a very unexpected visitor. Yeah, this is where it all kicks off. Right from the start, things are a little weird for David. He was born on a Friday at midnight, and local superstition says that's a recipe for an unlucky life, one where you're bound to see ghosts. He's also born with something called a caul, a membrane around the baby. Back then, people, especially sailors, thought it was a super lucky charm, something that would protect you from drowning. So you've got this wild mix of good and bad omens from his very first second on Earth. On the very night he's born, his poor mother is grieving, and suddenly this face appears at the window, just pressed right up against the glass. It's his great-aunt, Miss Betsy Trotwood. Now, they've never met, but David's mother is absolutely terrified of her. And you get the sense right away that this is not a woman who likes to be kept waiting. Yep, there she is. Mrs. David Copperfield, I think. You can just hear the tone, can't you? There's no doubt who's in charge here. Miss Trotwood isn't just visiting. She's a force of nature, and she fully expects everyone to just fall in line. She's not just dropping by for tea. Nope. She has the whole future mapped out. She's absolutely convinced the baby is a girl, and not just any girl. She's going to be her goddaughter, her friend, and her namesake, Betsy Trotwood Copperfield. The plan is set. The only tiny little detail is that the baby hasn't exactly agreed to this. And then the news comes. It's a boy. And just like that, Miss Betsy's entire plan goes up in smoke. So what does she do? She doesn't say a word. Just grabs her bonnet, walks out, and poof, she's gone. Vanished. A boy was not part of the plan. After that frankly bizarre birth story, David's first few years were actually pretty happy. But this is a Dickens novel, so you know that's not going to last. His whole world is about to get turned completely upside down. This is the turning point. Before, life at the Rookery was simple and happy with his mom and their servant, Peggotty. Then Mr. Murdstone arrives. He and his sister are just cold, cruel. They bring this idea of firmness into the house, which is basically a code word for a life of fear, strict rules, and the constant threat of a cane. David's happy home is gone, and the Murdstones move fast. First, they ship David off to this awful boarding school called Salem House. While he's there, he gets the worst news imaginable. His mother has died. And then, bam, he's just 10 years old, and they send him to work in a factory in London. His childhood is over. But even in this dark time, there's a small glimmer of light. David meets Mr. Micawber. What a character. He is this eccentric, dramatic guy who's always, and I mean always, in debt. He's also convinced that something will turn up. His famous rule about money. Absolutely brilliant. The only problem is, he never ever follows it himself. David hits rock bottom. He feels like he has nothing left. He makes this huge, desperate decision. He's going to run away. And where is he going? He's going to try and find the one and only family member he has left. His great-aunt Betsy. You know, the one who stormed out the minute she found out he was a boy. It's a total long shot, but what other choice does he have? And this journey is just brutal. He leaves London with basically nothing, and then he gets robbed of what little he has. He ends up walking for 6 days straight, 60 miles from London to Dover. He's sleeping outside, selling his clothes for food, By the time he gets there, he is completely broke, ragged, and just houseless. This experience marks him for life. This quote just says it all. He says, "How I prayed that I never might be houseless anymore and never might forget the houseless." It's a terrible way to learn a lesson, but it gives him this deep empathy that defines who he becomes. So here we are, a new beginning. Maybe he actually makes it. He finds his aunt's cottage looking like a little scarecrow about to collapse. And there she is, the woman who wanted nothing to do with him because he wasn't a girl. What now? In one of the story's great turnarounds, she takes him in. Don't get me wrong. She's still the same old Betsy Trotwood, yelling at people for walking on her grass. But she also gives him a bath, feeds him, and tucks him into a clean bed. It's a kindness he hasn't experienced in years. But the real test comes when the Murdstones show up to drag him back. They have no idea what they're in for. Aunt Betsy has made her choice, and she absolutely lays into Mr. Murdstone. She calls him a tyrant and tells him he broke his wife's heart and sends them packing for good. David is finally free. This is it. A total life reboot. His aunt renames him Trotwood Copperfield. She sends him to a fantastic school. He gets a new home with her and her eccentric friend, Mr. Dick, and he starts meeting all these new people like the lawyer, Mr. Wickfield, and his clerk, Uriah Heep. Everything has changed. His life goes from absolute misery to one that's full of promise. Speaking of new acquaintances, let's talk about Uriah Heep. This guy, he's always talking about how humble he is. That's humble to you and me. He's just unsettling. Everything about him, from his slimy handshake to the way he talks, screams danger. You can tell there's something not right with him lurking just under that humble surface. That brings us to the real start of David's new life. He's safe. He's got a second chance. But there are new challenges on the horizon, which brings us right back to the question the novel asks on its very first page. Is David going to be the hero of his own life? Or is someone else going to take that spot?